Meanwhile, Bed Bath & Beyond is going bankrupt. Now, that in and of itself is, not huge news. I mean, it is over at the Financial Times. It is in the Wall Street Journal. But for you and me, it's not that big a deal. Other than that, people we know or people in our communities are going to lose their jobs if there's a Bed Bath & Beyond store in your area. What's interesting about this is that the senior executives of Bed Bath & Beyond appear to have basically looted the company. And I think this says more about the state of democracy, or of capitalism in America than anything else I can think of. Prior to the 1980s, prior to the Reagan administration, it was a crime for a publicly traded company to buy its own stock in large enough numbers that it reduced the number of the number of shares in the marketplace, thus increasing the value of every share. Right? If you've got 1 million shares out there and you take away 100,000, you now only have 900,000 shares. Your company is still worth $1 million. So now every share instead of being worth $1, is worth $1.10 because there's fewer shares. I mean, this is kind of simple math. So share buybacks were considered stock manipulation. They had been outlawed by the Securities and Exchange Commission that was created by Franklin Roosevelt, its first president, or its first, whatever they call the head of the SEC. The first guy to run it was Joe Kennedy, because as President Roosevelt told my old friend Gloria Swanson, who has now passed away, but she told me this over dinner one night in her apartment in Manhattan. She said, Franklin told her that he hired Joe Kennedy because it takes a crook to catch a crook. Joe Kennedy had ripped her off badly. He had been sort of her agent for a little while and just basically stole everything she had and exploited her terribly. But anyhow, Joe Kennedy was smart enough to know that it was stock manipulation, like stock buybacks, that had led to the crash of 1929. So they outlawed it. So Reagan did away with that regulation. And stock buybacks became a thing again in the 1980s. Now, what happens when a company buys back its stock is that the price of individual shares goes up. And it goes up, it goes up higher and higher depending on how much stock gets bought back. Well, Bed Bath & Beyond, in the years between, since 2005, has bought back $11.6 billion worth of their own shares. $9.6 billion since 2010, $2 billion since 2014, and just a billion in 2021. This is a company that just went bankrupt because they were unable to make bond payments. They were unable to make interest payments on $1 billion worth of bonds. $1 billion worth of bonds. They've done $11 billion worth of share buybacks. So, when they do the share buybacks, what happens is you've got executives, senior executives and CEOs who are compensated in part with stock or with stock options. Say the stock is selling for $30 a share and you get 1,000 options. It means that, if you want, you can buy 1,000 shares for $30 each, or you can spend $30,000 and get 1,000 shares of the stock. Well, that price is fixed at the time you get the compensation. So you get the stock option for 1,000 shares at whatever point in time. Well, then you have the company go out and buy back $1 billion worth of stock, and suddenly the shares are they're no longer $30, they're now $40. So then you do what's called exercising the option. You buy the shares at $30 because that's the price that's fixed. 10 minutes later, you sell them for $40 and you pocket the $10 per share difference, or $10,000 in this example. Now, typically when we're talking CEOs, we're not talking $10,000, we're talking $10 million. But Bed Bath & Beyond, another example of post-Reagan capitalism, just basically screwing American communities so that a bunch of fat cat CEOs and executives can get richer and richer and richer.